Today we are learning basketball with Joel Rush, all the way from Japan, taking some time to talk a little Denver Nuggets basketball. That's what we're here to do. You can find Joel's work at Joel Rush NBA on Twitter, on Blue Sky. He is a writer on the NBA covering the Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets for Forbes Sports. And, this is our second Denver Nuggets offseason preview. So, maybe a little annual tradition here in the works. Joel, how you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. And how are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to kind of dive into this Nuggets offseason. Like I really like some of these moves that they did to kind of revamp just the vibes around the team and maybe, spread out the depth a little more. But, it's been a big season. They clearly made a push in my mind to be like, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So, is that kind of the vibes around Denver or in the Nuggets circles this summer that, this team is as committed as ever?
Absolutely. And before I go further, just thank you for having me on. But yeah, I think before the offseason started, there was a big cloud of doubt hanging over everything. And it seemed like the Nuggets were really handcuffed and locked into such a restrictive salary situation and even the new front office had said, or given indications that they might not be making many big moves. So the fans are kind of going into it, I think, thinking this is going to be a disappointing offseason. And then just unexpectedly, it turned out to possibly be the best offseason during the Nikola Jokic era. Now, the other one arguably being when they signed KCP and Bruce Brown and then won the championship. So the payoff of this remains to be seen. But, at least on paper, the fact that they were able to clear salary by trading MPJ for Cam Johnson, and that loosened them up to be able to make the Saric for Val trade and all that, was just, again, unexpectedly, they reaped more benefit from this offseason than I think anybody was realistically expecting.
Absolutely. And you hit on kind of my next question of what are the reasons the Nuggets do this move when maybe on paper, the first big move, the Cam Johnson trade, they trade out Michael Porter Jr. and an unprotected first and a couple years down the line. So, very confident in the winning until then. And you just, you have Jokic. You just decide that the picks are here to bring in players like Cam Johnson more so than become picks. So that makes a lot of sense. And you hit on the big salary part where, if I have this right, Michael Porter Jr. was due to make like $38 million, and instead they're going to be spending a combined $37 million on basically everyone else: Cam Johnson, Jonas Valanciunas, Tim Hardaway Jr., Bruce Brown. So, financially makes a lot of sense on that end. And I guess my thought is, how did they view MPJ at this moment? Has it been kind of writing on the wall for a little while that, something might get broken up here, that this core can't really last forever, whether it's the financial reasons or the faith in his injury history and potential injuries down the road? How much do you think they still valued MPJ compared to Cam Johnson? Because on paper, you could say they are similar players, but I do really like the fit with I'm sure we'll hit on the fit a little bit too of how Cam works. But, how did they view Michael Porter Jr. at the end of this? How long has he been kind of available, or, what kind of led to this decision, do you think?
Well, having 3 max contracts was the big pressure point. And I would say by all accounts, the Denver Nuggets loved Michael Porter Jr. And this move was nothing to disparage him or nothing about not liking him or anything like that. But if, like you said, you can get a player of comparable production for so much less salary, and, there was a little bit of inconsistency in the playoffs. There were some playoff series where MPJ just really helped the Nuggets win that series, and other series where he kind of disappeared. And I think there's some belief that Cam Johnson will be a more consistent player, at least. And in addition, some of the criticism of that trade that I've seen talks about, the Nuggets are going to lose some size. They're going to lose some rebounding from Michael Porter Jr. and his ability to rise up above, shooters, above defenders when he's shooting from the perimeter, because he's just so damn tall. Cam Johnson doesn't have that. But, Cam Johnson has a little more playmaking, and he has a little more, I think, court IQ in terms of spatial awareness, and especially on defense, I think it is an upgrade. So, I think it was basically seen as a lateral move player-wise, but if you're going to save that much money and that gives you the flexibility to add other players, then it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. Like, it just makes a lot of sense across the board, and I do think they had to have loved MPJ there for a ton of reasons. Like, Denver's the team that took a chance on him in the draft, and as he's falling to, I think it was 15 because of the noted back injuries and just the concern of kind of not being available. And I think it did kind of play out as you said. Like, the injuries were an issue. Like, I think the injuries are what caused a lot of that inconsistency more than anything else, of just not being himself.
Totally fair. I mean, you remember that gigantic pad he was wearing on his shoulder in the playoffs. I mean, that's an absolutely fair point, and that's not his fault by any means. And in fact, I would say that he was reputed to be one of the hardest working guys on the team. He's a total hooper. He lives in the gym. There was absolutely no qualms in the Nuggets organization about, his work ethic or his devotion to, and he made a lot of sacrifices too. Like, as a guy who was pegged as like a top high school prospect, him
and Trae Young,
he was never the guy in third fiddle, and he accepted that role and he devoted himself to it, and he helped them win a championship. So the Nuggets will always look fondly on Michael Porter Jr., and it's nothing he did wrong that led to the trade. Actually, it's probably something that the previous front office did wrong that led to the trade, because they just handcuffed themselves into this really restrictive salary structure that had 3 max contracts, and you just can't survive under the new CBA under those conditions.
Yeah, those are all great points. And yeah, like he was the guy on that, like he's been the guy his whole life, and the injuries have, taken that back, but like he's been very, very like okay and cool with taking a lesser on-ball role, being more of a team system. And, we saw that, the year they won it all. And that's a good point earlier as well with, KCP, that signing, that offseason, you couldn't dream up a better fit of what they needed to round out that starting lineup for floor balance, just the D and 3-point of attack, lockdown defender, guard. He developed all that chemistry with Jokic in some 2-man game, running off handoffs, hitting the catch and shoot threes. So yeah, when you nail the offseason so well that like you have the best lineup in the NBA and you win it all, it's going to be hard to top. But I'm totally with you that it feels like this was more talent being acquired, or a bigger talent acquisition summer for Denver than that summer. You could say that
the one argument you might be able to make already, even though it might be a little premature because we haven't seen the results yet, would just be that on paper, the expectations versus the delivery, there was a wider gap this offseason than that previous one. Everyone thought they just weren't going to do anything this summer, and they did a lot. Yeah. I'm just looking at my players in and players out here.
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr., Russ, DeAndre, Saric, Vlatko, Trey Alexander, PJ Hall, all out. Cam Johnson, Jonas, Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway, Spencer Jones, Tamara Bates, Curtis Jones in. But basically that is 2 rotation players out in MPJ and Russ, and 4 in Cam, Val, and Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. So like, if you're, saving money and adding rotation players, and your big move out is basically bringing back a comparable player, again, it's a no-brainer. Like, you got to do it. And especially like, we haven't even talked about the fact that they fired the front office and the coach like with 1 week left in the regular season, and
wild
for a brand new front office. I mean, brand new. He was inside the front office. Then Tenzer was inside the front office, for many years. But even so, he's newly at the helm. And for a brand new front office to pull this off, what honestly Calvin Booth failed at when, he was in a similar position getting promoted from within. It's very impressive to me.
Absolutely. I mean, to make all these changes in the first offseason like that, like normally you'll get like the opposite effect where it's like a new owner or something and they just like want to make a splash. They blow all the assets on some like big name past his prime and they think Phoenix. Yeah, so something like that. Maybe, the Brooklyn Nets back, the famous trade back in the day when they bring all the big three Celtics over, that kind of thing. But, it's not an owner in this situation. It's a prepared front office that, made a lot of moves. And I'm with you. I think this is one of the most like the best off seasons and the most revamped Denver rosters we've seen in a minute. And as you were listing those names, that's kind of the mental math there is, yeah, you lose Russ, who was really good for this Denver team, and Porter Jr. Obviously, we talked about his impact, but if Cam brings similar impact, and you're essentially getting 3 more proven role players for Russ, that just fills out so much depth where the team doesn't have to rely on Trey Alexander and maybe Julian Strawther, like these younger guys that still have talent. I'm a big fan of like Trey Alexander's game, but like your championship window is now. You don't really have 3 years, 5 years to kind of let the development play out the way it needs to. And sometimes there are rookies that are impactful right away, but on average, you got to wait a few years. So like just being a contender that has proven role guys, all that do different things. Let's hit on some of the role guys. Like, Bruce Brown is back.
If I could just
before we do
make one quick point about what you just said, and something you said previously as well. But firstly, about the playoffs, the most recent playoffs, if Julian Strawther didn't pan out, where were they going to turn? Like, I think the Nuggets' hope is that Julian Strawther will surpass Tim Hardaway and prove to be the better player by the end of the season. But if that doesn't happen, then when they hit the playoffs, they've got a guy with playoff experience to back him up. And same thing with like Peyton Watson. Like, if the front court player who's backing up, Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic isn't really ready to go yet, well, now they have Valanciunas, so like just this extra layer of bench depth that they have like really fortifies their, playoff deep run chances. And just going back to the very beginning of what you said, you asked about the mood first, I think, and how are people feeling about it. And everything we've talked about up to this point points to everybody feeling like it's a new start. It's a refreshing off season that will kind of be a reset for the whole team. And I think we saw the reaction of the players in their positive response to Adelman taking over after Malone got fired in the playoffs, where they exceeded expectations based on their pretty poor regular season performance. So like, I think they're going in more positive than they have since they won the championship into this next season. So mentally speaking, that is.
There it is. I mean, the vibes around the team are good. So with the new role players, we got Bruce Brown, we got Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas are some of the big ones that stand out to me for the depth here. And, what really stands out, I mean, first off with Bruce Brown, like he had his most effective role in Denver when he popped out as this like, and Brooklyn as well a little bit, but he had that role like down to a T where he just fits seamlessly with this team as like a do-it-all role player, switch army knife. Just like you need him to run some point guard and set him up. Go ahead. You want him to set a screen and roll to the rim as a roller? Sure, why not? So like that versatility, and also is just so valuable.
If Jamal Murray got injured, he was starting at point guard. If KCP got injured, he was starting at shooting guard. If, Michael Porter Jr. got injured, he was starting at small forward. Like, his versatility was massive for the Nuggets that season. And I think it's inevitable that he will have a bounce back season after his, kind of previous couple of disappointing seasons. But the big question to me is just like, how far will he bounce back all the way to the guy he was in that 2023 season, or what percent of that will he reach? But even if it's like 80 or 70% of that, it's still like a massive pickup at a vet min contract for the Nuggets, because that'll just be so helpful to have his experience and compatibility with the team, and the fact that he already has chemistry with Jokic and all the most important players of the team. So I think it's just, and he's just a fan favorite too. Like his passion and his energy and like his fire, like he brings back what they're gonna miss some of with losing Russ, and personality wise and all that. So I think it's just a great pickup.
Yeah, they got their ball of energy back, and that's a good point. That like his malleability, I believe, is one of his best skill sets, to the point that he's basically just back up anything. Like as you're saying, like he can just be the plug and play reserve at any position, because he brings versatile defense, and he just fits so seamlessly with Jokic that I do think that him being in a role next to Jokic is just a huge difference for this specific talent, compared to just throwing him on the Raptors and hoping for the best, or just asking him to create everything from scratch, instead of clearly his instincts are off the charts as an off-ball play finisher, especially next to a star like Jokic. So you get a guy that is like telepathic with Jokic and their chemistry, their off-ball movement. You mentioned that like some of his best experience was in Denver, right after being in Brooklyn, where I think the same thing applied in Brooklyn, where he played on the James Harden, KD, Kyrie teams, and he was an ultimate role player, random, like a truly positionless guy, because he just does all the little things that
he was
player
even playing center for them, right?
Yeah, he was.
That's crazy to think.
Because of that rim rolling, and like he's just so versatile, I guess, that his talents get accentuated by playing with stars who do the creation, so he can focus on the instincts and play finishing off-ball stuff that any player can do, but he does it so well that he thrives, to the point where his impact is even better than the talent, in my opinion, because of that. So that's just, a huge kind of thing the Nuggets can lean on. As you said, all the positions, all the injuries, whatever would happen, like he's a guy they can lean on just about at any position to just plug and play and keep a starting unit caliber rotation ready. And that defense is not underrated. Like that defense being versatile and a plus defender who can guard 1 through 4 is probably the biggest reason he's able to just plug and play in any of these starting lineups, because he's holding his own.
And he's a never quit guy too. Like he just, even if the defense is faltering, he's bringing the energy at all times. So, you never have to work. Like there are some Nuggets players, and one of them got traded, who you sometimes had to worry about his focus or effort on defense. And that's not a concern with Brucey B. And also, like when you pay a guy $20 million, that comes with a certain baggage of expectations, right?
Sure.
He's not going to be asked to do anything outside of his boundaries for this team. Like the starting 5 of the Nuggets is already like, I was just trying to look it up. They were plus 12.8 per 100 possessions last season. And I think they've even had, better seasons than that previously. But, there's no pressure on any of these bench guys to do anything outside of like their capabilities. And that's not true of Julian Strawther. That's not true of Peyton Watson last season, right? Like they were calling on these youngsters to really exceed their kind of regular career arc, and before they had grown into like the kind of veteran experience that some of these playoff moments requires. So it's going to be, I think, just a big fortification of everything behind the starting 5 that they did this offseason. And
yeah,
Brown is a great example of just one of those components.
Exactly. I mean, the depth really, I think what we're highlighting here is not just the individual pieces, like anyone is going to be just the savior of the bench. It's that there is a bench. There's an entire bench unit now that can be rolled
Which
out.
almost has never been said in the Jokic era. Like,
Right.
the Nuggets
Like,
bench is
do you think this is the best depth of the Jokic era that the team has seen?
I believe so. Presuming good health, which we never can safely do.
And we're still on paper here, maybe halfway through the season, you think, the chemistry of the championship team or something is a little better, but
and Hardaway could drop off, Brown could drop off. Any of these, veteran guys could be a disappointment. That's always a realistic possibility. So, but, I think their circumstances are optimized in Denver in a way that was not the case in their previous situations. So that I think that should facilitate, maximizing what they are able to produce on the court.
Absolutely. And so another guy, Tim Hardaway Jr., I love this pickup for the team because he has become like a really impressive offensive role player to me ever since he got to Dallas. In New York and Atlanta, I think he was overtasked a bit with his usage, his on-ball role, and he could score and get buckets. But I think he finally found his perfect role next to Luka, and it showed again next to Cade Cunningham, and I think it'll show again next to Jokic, where all you're asking him to this point is to do what he's best at: hit those open catch and shoot threes, attack closeouts with the pump fake and that threat of the 3-point gravity. He's a guy that should draw doubles, 2 defenders on a 3-point shot. If you have a few of those guys around Jokic or Jamal, who's also drawing doubles, I mean, there's only so many doubles to be had. You can't double everybody. So if you have real floor stretchers,
if you sub in Hardaway for Christian Brown,
just
so you got Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Cam Johnson, and Aaron Gordon on the court.
Like, and last year, Aaron Gordon was
40% 3-point because he'll kill you. So he's just going to be getting clean looks all day and night, I think. Unless the defense really adjusts, and if they do that, then there's no better on-the-fly duo than Murray and Jokic to readjust their offense in real time to exploit those defensive adjustments. I recently heard, I think it was the Sam Vecini's pod, the Game Theory pod, but they did a thing on the best duos in the NBA.
Correction. It was the Ringer NBA show with Howard Beck and Michael Pina.
Mm-hmm. And they listed Jokic and Murray at number 1. And I was a little surprised about that because I just thought, after the last playoff disappointment and stuff, that the perception of that may have slipped. But I do think when everybody's healthy, and again, that's a ongoing concern and we can't guarantee that, but I think they still got it, and a lot of it, like all the turmoil last year between Booth and Malone fighting and like the factions inside the Nuggets organization, and like there were Booth guys and there were Malone guys, and that seeped into the players, and I think it just kind of poisoned the whole atmosphere. I think again they're going into this season clean, and I think that will help facilitate a smoother level of play among all the players.
And I'm not sure how much was really reported about that, confliction in the front office to coach, but I know that ultimately it came out that is sort of, what ended up leading to that breakup. Did you have any more thoughts or insight into kind of what that was all about?
I mean, like I live in Japan, so I kind of get the same information that most other people do, but definitely I think there was knowledge among, NBA media guys who are in Denver and in the locker room every day doing interviews and stuff. Like there was an awareness of that, but I think also the organization was pretty good about keeping that close to the vest and not really, there was a little bit of leaking here and there, like Calvin Booth especially was pretty loose-lipped about some stuff, saying, basically he wanted Malone to play younger guys more without saying it. But, so there was some of that, but it never got public. until, then after that happened, after the firings, I think more stuff leaked out, because then it was kind of like a permission slip for people who knew some stuff to be able to talk about it a little more openly. But
yeah, that's really all I had to go off of, was the kind of the leaks and rumors that came out after as to, what happened here. That we're looking at a championship contender, a champion coach, like weird timing. But
it was shocking time. Like, I was stunned when they fired Malone. I was like, what the hell just happened? Like,
yeah.
And, this is a guy who should have won Coach of the Year for the Nuggets at some point in his tenure there, given like every single season they got more wins for like 6 years straight, I think, or 5 at least. But, like, he never quite got credit for it, because there's always a like more exciting, like Dagnall, or I don't know if he actually won Coach of, but you know what I mean? Like the kind of young, cool guys, like kind of always win the Coach of the Year. Usually, unless it's like a pop type figure. But Malone was always in that in-between zone. But, that parade, if you remember the championship parade, and just all of Malone's quotes too, like, take that L
he was
on the
confident.
way out. And, like, he was a great quote, and he was just like, he's a player's guy, he's a player's coach. And like, I think the external perception, at least, was that like he was really in the players' corner and that the players were with him. But apparently that was not as much the case as it seemed from the outside. And the result of that clearly showed when they fired him and Adelman took over, because the response of the players was just super positive. And that speaks more than any words we can say about it, I think.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, once you lose the players in a locker room, you're done for as a coach, and it's really tough to keep a message fresh and like have players still hear you after. I think 5 seasons is pretty much the average life of a coach in the NBA, unless you're truly great.
Like, what was Larry Bird's quote about that? Like, he quit as coach because he was like, basically, 5 years, you're going to lose the players anyway, so I might as well just step down here, right? Like, or something along.
That's what
I'm poorly paraphrasing what he actually said, but it's something along those lines, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think that is generally what I'm referencing as well. Is that quote? We'll see if we could find it as we're talking here.
I don't mean to misquote anybody, but I think that was the general gist of what he was getting at. Is that like, if I continue this, I'm probably going to get fired anyways, because you just can't keep a locker room for more than 4 or 5 years, because that's just the way that things work in the NBA.
Yeah, he was talking just the history. I've been around the history of the game for a lot of years. My experience has been good coaches leave after 3 years. I played for Bill Fitch. I've seen it happen firsthand. I've talked to Red Auerbach on the subject. We had Casey Jones for 5 years, nicest man I've ever met, and they let him go, and we were having success. And this goes back a long time ago. I've seen it, and after a certain number of years, it's time to make a move. That's how I feel. It's time for a new voice around here, and so that sort of thing. And I want to say there is like a stat related to the 5-year thing as an average coaches that I'm getting that from, but maybe it is just the 3-year Larry Bird quote. But on David Adelman.
But the key phrase there is time for a new voice, and I think that was true for the Nuggets, and it showed in their response through the end of the regular season and the playoffs to Adelman as their new coach. Yeah, as you lead into Adelman talk.
What are your thoughts on him, on David Adelman? He's been around the NBA for a long time. He's always like a great interim coach whenever he gets the chance around the league. So it's nice to see him get that full-time title here. Clearly the players are in, as you're saying, if they're excited about that new voice, like they probably had some key players behind that decision of what they wanted to maybe clear the air and get a new message involved. But is there anything you saw, even in the short stint he had? I forget how many regular season games, but it was the whole playoffs, a couple rounds, so probably 10, 20 games. Is there anything you saw once David Adelman took over as head coach for the Denver Nuggets that looked a little different about the team? And like, whether it's just the vibes, whether it's the energy, whether it's the coaching scheme itself, the offense, the defense, was there anything that kind of stood out to you as like, all right, this is kind of a new identity for this team, and how David Adelman will kind of lead this team there?
Well, I would divide this into two categories because one is just like the X's and O's on the court. And I think that's kind of largely to be determined because, as you know, external people who are not there during practices and not there, during meetings and stuff like that, like it's so difficult to discern how much input assistants have, how much influence they have, what their role is, what their philosophy is, because everything finally funnels through the head coach who gets credit or blame for everything that ultimately happens. And the roles of the assistants just get washed into the background. So, like, he said he's going to, I think, use more zone defense, for example. I'm really looking forward to seeing, like, if he runs different types of offensive sets and if he, really tries to implement some new concepts that Malone never did, because now he has the chance to do it. But in that sense, I don't think we really know yet, because I think on the court, he was largely continuing the same stuff that everybody was used to, because you just can't change that up with 1 week before the playoffs.
Sure. And it's not like it was broken. It's not broken, don't fix it kind of thing. Like they had, I had it up here a second ago, the fourth best offense last year in the whole league. They were down to 21 on defense, but ninth overall in point differential on the season. And efficient across the board offensively. I mean, second in shooting efficiency, fifth in rebounding percentage, fourth in free throw rate, 13th in turnover percentage. So, like, literally top five in every offensive category except for turnovers where they were average. Like, you can't really ask for a better offense. So, don't have to reinvent the wheel here in terms of offensively. But it is interesting with a new head coach, where he kind of leaves his impact and where things might change. And that's a great point that we really don't know how involved he has been. Maybe he's been, clearly second in command for a long time, because just to like run through his resume, he's been with Denver since he was in Orlando in 2017. He's been with Denver as an assistant coach ever since. And I recognize him from Orlando from that time. And I kind of thought he'd be bouncing around a little bit more, but no, he's just been working really hard for Denver for, like 8 seasons or so since then.
And he's been in the NBA his entire life, since his dad was also a legendary NBA coach. So
right,
that
started as a player development coach with his dad
in the culture, understanding the beats and stuff like that. But I mentioned there was 2 categories, one being the on-court stuff, but one, I think Russell Westbrook is kind of the linchpin of the example of the big change from Malone to Adelman that was a shift from negative to positive, because I think there was a perception by at least some players in the locker room that Russell Westbrook was getting unfairly more minutes than he deserved through merit of his play on the court, and that Malone had a favoritism towards veterans rather than towards just playing the best dude. And Adelman immediately after taking over was like, no, this shit is merit-based. Like, if you don't perform, I'm going to put you on the bench. And we saw some examples of that. Like, he was benching some guys in the fourth quarter down the stretches of games, when he just thought, like, no, you don't have it tonight, man. And I don't care if you're a $30 million guy or whatever. Like, I'm closing with, Peyton Watson over Michael Porter Jr. tonight. That happened, I think, at least a couple times. So I think the players respected that in him in a way that Malone had kind of lost them. So in that respect, like, can that continue through the next season? Like, or to what extent will it? It's hard to project, but, I think at the very least, like, he does right now command the respect of the players, and they genuinely like him and appreciate him and trust him. So, I think that regardless of his coaching skill in terms of, planning a new offense or whatnot, I think that is just a shift in a more positive direction than was happening last season.
Yeah, and you can see how that can get tricky as a head coach when you're expected to win and you're contending for a championship. you're making split-second decisions of who to trust. And, you're going down your bench real quick and looking down, like, there's a guy that's been in 1,000 playoff games and done this 1,000 times. There's a guy that's never done this, but he's, winning in practice and is clearly better. Who do I trust to make these decisions in like the limelight, the biggest stage? And I totally understand why a coach would lean towards the veteran at times, a more proven guy that knows where to be and what his role is. But at the same time, like, if he's
and by the way,
worse
in the championship run, trusting Jeff Green and trusting Justin Holiday worked.
Yeah.
Like, sure. Those guys were playing over Zeke Naji, for example.
Yeah. Jeff Green got $15 million off that year.
There's no black or white, right or wrong answer to this question. It's a philosophical difference that can express itself in different ways depending on the exact details of each roster and circumstance. So, for sure. But the clear thing to me is that it just wasn't working for the Nuggets last season. And it suddenly started working better when they fired Malone and replaced him with Adelman. So, like, the proof is in the pudding in that respect, kind of. And I think that he'll have a honeymoon, at least for a while, I think, where that will continue. And then we'll see if they go on like a 7-game losing streak. It's probably easier for him to get in the hot seat than it would have been if Malone had a November 7-game losing streak, right? So, like, his job stability still might not be totally secure, as no NBA coaches is. But I think everyone is just pointing in the same direction now. And that can just work wonders for any organization, where you just minimize the conflict and just have everyone on the same page.
Absolutely. And we've, talked about like the idea of vertical alignment in a franchise, an organization, just top to bottom being on the same page, your coach, your owner, your GM, your best player, maybe a couple of your best players. Like, it's a rare thing to happen, but once you get there, the whole exercise for everyone just gets a lot easier because everyone's like buying into the same idea. And, as you pointed out, if you lose some of the locker room, if that idea gets split, you got your front office wanting more young players and your coaching wanting more experienced players out there. Like, both of them have a good case for that. And it's tough because at the end of the day, you just got to make tough decisions as a coach. And you're the one that's going to take responsibility for how the performance is. So I can totally understand a contending coach having a problem trying to develop young guys while doing it. Like, it seems like these are conflicting ideas, and it doesn't mean you can't contend with young guys and all that, but to like focus on development is tough because you need to let them make mistakes to develop. But we're trying to win games and contend. We're not trying to make mistakes out there either. So, that's kind of what the G League is for.
Hated losing.
Sure.
Like, there's no coach in NBA history who hates losing more than Michael Malone, for sure, I think.
There it is.
But, when that does happen, when everything falls into place, even if you don't know what's happening inside the locker room, you can feel it and you can see it. Like, Indiana had that last playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Oklahoma City had that last play. Like, you can just see, like, all these dudes are in lockstep and they are all committed to the same goal. And it just is clicking on all cylinders and it's working, and sometimes if you see dysfunction, you can't say it's because they don't have that, because it could be other reasons. It could be injuries or just one player's pissed because he didn't get a salary or, something like that. But when it does happen, it's really apparent, I think. Absolutely. And I think we'll see that more visibly in this upcoming season with the Nuggets.
Yeah. And, now that, as you kind of hinted at there, like if Westbrook was this divisive inside the locker room and both he and the head coach are now gone, then that should, breathe a little fresh air into the room of what the goals are and what the plan is. Not to blow it up like, it's all one guy's fault, but if there was some, friction because of a handful of guys and all of them are no longer in the picture, you still have Jokic in his prime, Jamal and Aaron Gordon are happy. Let's just keep building from there. I mean, we touched on it earlier. Those three on the court together, last season, plus 13 net rating in 700 minutes. You throw Christian Brown in that group, and it's still plus 14 in about 500 minutes. So you have a core 3, core 4 of your starting lineup ready, and now you're just building out, finding lineups that work. We hit on a lot of the depth. There's one guy we haven't hit on. I think it's official. Jonas Valanciunas is staying in Denver. I got a quote here that
he has committed to it. Yes, he hasn't visited Denver yet, to my knowledge, but he did say, "I will be there. I will play for the Nuggets, and I look forward to something like contributing to a championship." You have the quote there, maybe?
Yeah, I pulled it up here. Jonas via Donatus Urbanus spoke with him to clear the air about the Nuggets and Panathinaikos. I want to clear the air about my playing situation next season now that Denver has made their decision to keep me. The idea of playing for Panathinaikos closer to home was very exciting to me, but that will have to wait. I am fully committed to honoring my contract with the Nuggets this season and will give it my all to compete for a championship. I mean, that's what you want to hear. There's no more rumors, no more what ifs. Like, you don't have to worry about like what backup center are we going to find with the MLE this late in the process. You got your guy. You got a guy, and it's a great fit for a lot of reasons.
Only legitimate backup center Mason Plumlee possibly accepted that Jokic has ever had.
Right. Since the Plumlees, who did a great Jokic impression for the bench unit back then. Yeah, exactly. I mean, an actual guy, what's great is you already have this. He's not a traditional center by any means in Jokic, but he's a traditional size center. He's a behemoth big down low. So you have another guy that matches that size for certain matchups. Like if maybe you're worried about Jokic getting in foul trouble, you can throw another big man that knows what he's doing out there, brings toughness off the bench, and can act as a handoff playmaking hub. Of course, he's not Jokic, but you get to replicate hopefully some of the same schemes with your bench unit through him that you might, miss out on for 10 minutes a game while Jokic is on the bench, or at the very least, like I just said, have the backup option, whether it's an injury or foul trouble. You have a guy you can lean on that's started practically his whole career, and at the very least is a reliable backup.
There's a very real chance he could be the best bench player on the Nuggets.
That's my question.
It's possible.
Whether it's a free agent, role player, who's the most impactful role guy next season for this Nuggets team? After, let's not even count Christian Brown or Cam Johnson. Out of the whole bench, who's the guy that's going to be their most reliable guy? And you think it might be Jonas?
Well, I think it could be. And I think I would take the field over any individual guy. I take the field over Bruce. I take the field over Hardaway, the field over Strawther, Peyton, Val, all of them. But the good thing for the Nuggets is that one of them will be, and they have more than like two guys there, like you can afford for two of those guys to not pan out and you'll still have three who do. So I think the aggregate is going to be a positive for sure. But my personal kind of two hopes. One, just emotionally, I hope it's Bruce Brown, because it would just be so fun if he just came roaring back and was the same guy he was in 23 and just like
absolutely
by the way,
he's only 29 years old. Like Bruce Brown, yeah. I was just looking it up. Tim Hardaway and Jonas are about 31 and 33, I think, but Bruce Brown's only 29. Like this should be his peak athletic type of time is right now. So you got the perfect role with your peak athletic self. Like I think that's on the table, the bounce back. And I think Jonas is maybe the most like, what you're getting guy that they have out of all these acquisitions. Like you can count on him for what he's good at. Like he's not going to go be a mobile perimeter switchable defender. He's going to be a post up big brute that can help protect the rim a little bit, score a little bit, hand off a little bit, and you get a little bit of two-way impact that way. That I'm not sure anyone
and like you said, he can kind of preserve the Jokic style of offense when Jokic leaves the court, so that there's not as much of a great discrepancy there, which is something that, for as noble of an effort as DeAndre Jordan put in over the last few years, or as Zeke Naji has been probably miscast as a 5 at times because he's more of a 4, but when Jokic leaves the court, it's just disaster time for the Nuggets traditionally, and I think just having a competent, solid veteran dude for those 10 minutes is going to make a world of difference. But, I would say that the guy who I would like to actually pin to answer your question, who I think is most important to emerge as that guy for the Nuggets, might be, well, either Julian Strawther or Peyton Watson. Like, one of these guys clicking really helps the Nuggets going forward, both in terms of their salary structure and in terms of, just like adding a guy who, those guys had moments in the playoffs, but, they weren't like a reliable presence who was, a 15-minute contributor night to night to night. So like you get one of those guys plus all the new additions to hit, and then you're cooking with gas kind of. So,
Absolutely.
I think Strawther could be really poised for a leap. Peyton Watson could too. Both of them have had their struggles and injury problems and stuff like that. So both of them have kind of been marginalized, like for somewhat Michael Malone reasons, and also just, a stacked roster above them, like who's punching through into that starting five, like neither of those guys, obviously. So, but, this is kind of their time. Like Strawther will have every chance to be the backup, shooting guard.
6-man.
Mm-hmm. Now, Hardaway probably has the edge because he's a more established, proven better player. But Strawther will get a chance. And Peyton Watson actually might be the most important one because, like, if you look at their new additions, being Cam Johnson, who's starting, then you got 2 guards and 1 center. So P. Watt's kind of the only guy who's like right there in the like 3-4 area. Like, it's probably most important for him to make a leap in terms of the Nuggets balancing out their bench depth there and having someone reliable coming in behind Cam Johnson. Whereas, at the 2 could be Strawther or could be Hardaway, sometimes both, either. Also, they don't really have like a legit, I mean, not to disparage Jalen Pickett, who made progress last season, but Bruce Brown isn't a pure point guard. Tim Hardaway obviously isn't either. So like that might be one area where we might see some pre-deadline move to kind of shore up that position, and that could be determined by how these guys perform and who ends up looking dispensable, and a viable trade candidate by that February time. But we'll see on that front.
Yeah, that's all good points. I mean, Peyton Watson, now that you like look it out, like he was an impact defender last year. Like he makes plays, like he forces turnovers. I think him defining an offensive role and carving that out, like he basically like just needs to have a little bit of a serviceable offensive role to find playing time, I think, because like the defense is everywhere. It's a great like heir apparent prospect to have behind Aaron Gordon to like potentially replace that skill set down the line, or at the very least have a similar skill set to plug and play if he's not available. And, looking through it, like it looks like they're going almost with an inverted offense approach. Obviously you have Jokic and now you have Valanciunas off the bench. So it looks like they're going to be running a lot of these playmaking elbow handoff hub type of stuff through those two as the de facto points, because like you say, Jamal is more of a bucket getter to begin with. Bruce Brown is more of like an off-ball play finisher who can do a little bit of everything. So, this would be probably the team that doesn't necessarily need a traditional point guard because you have point center in a way running that. But, once the bench is out there, where's the playmaking coming from? And it's, Jamal Murray and Valanciunas, I guess, is kind of your answer, unless a Julian Strawther maybe, shows some flashes there. But there's that playmaking aspect and then the defense aspect where off the bench, like Bruce Brown is a plus defender and Peyton Watson, and I'm not sure how much more after that. Like maybe Valanciunas for his position among centers, like maybe he can count as a plus defender still, but he's not necessarily mobile, versatile, all those fun buzzwords that kind of you can work out from. But, that's where I think, Peyton Watson's defense will be vital for the second unit, but also that plug and play aspect could be really valuable for the first unit if he can just kind of carve out a role. And is there like one skill of his that, you kind of liked last season that you could kind of see him building off offensively? Anything for Peyton Watson in that sense?
Well, he needs to get better around the rim. I can't remember the exact percentages, but I think they're in the 40-ish. Like, he's been a pretty poor finisher around the rim. And he's shown flashes of being like a legit 3-level scorer. His 3-point shots, I think, especially from the corner, were vastly improved last season. I think he got up into the 40s there and maybe in the mid-30s above the break. And, he showed some mid-range stuff as well. But yeah, he's got to be able to, attack those closeouts and drive to the hoop and actually do something when he gets there. So I think that's on offense, one of his biggest required areas of improvement. And you mentioned his playmaking on defense. Like, that is his greatest attribute. Like, he just fucks shit up, to paraphrase Russell Westbrook. But he can also kind of lose his assignments, and his team defense, as kind of a free roving, help guy, he can jump in and do some stuff, but he hasn't been as much of a lockdown guy or, understanding the flow of the team defense and the rotations and stuff like that as well as, it might have been hoped that he would progress last season. So I would say like his defensive awareness and his finishing around the rim would be kind of his two greatest needs for improvement that I can see, at least. But
yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if he can carve out those roles, I mean, even just the corner three, like if it could be like PJ Tucker, just like an ace corner 3-point shooter that at the very least rounds out that unit of everyone else can kind of do what they need to do. I'll just stand in the corner and drill this shot. One of the most efficient shots in basketball, if not the most, other than a layup and a free throw, is that corner three. So like, if he can stay consistent there, even a D and 3 role is like, when you're that good defensively, that is where it becomes a real option that you can get away with just kind of being just a 3-point shooter offensively, I think, at least in terms of like what they need out of him for this lineup for these teams.
And actually a good example of that is Aaron Gordon, whose 3-point percentage like vastly improved last season. And he was still perceived largely as a guy who can't make a three. And time and again, he just punished the hell out of teams who left him open. And, again, if you're on the court with Jokic and Murray and, all these guys who can shoot, like, you're going to get these open looks, and you just have to be able to deliver at least somewhat consistently and at a somewhat good enough level of efficiency that they can't totally ignore you anymore. And I think P. Watt is still a guy who teams will ignore until he makes them pay for it. And that's kind of his assignment, this part of his assignment this season.
Yeah, and to that point, like Aaron Gordon, a career 32% 3-point shooter on 3 threes a game, but last season he's literally shot 44% on 3.5 threes per game. And
it was unreal.
Just wild. And I think some of it's credit to everything you just said with the floor balance. You're getting open threes playing with these guys. And I think knowing his role like that, and on top of all the really cool like stuff that came out about his home gym where he built like a giant gymnasium.
He literally lives in a gym.
Yeah,
like his home is a gym.
Like he took the phrase literally. He built a sick basketball gym with all these like murals of all-time great like influences in his life on the walls, and like he can just work on his shot right out like where he sleeps. And I imagine
it's probably better than the Nuggets practice facility, by the way.
I mean,
unfortunately for Denver,
that too. Like if you have that access and knowing your role, like he finally just was like, I imagine fully dedicated to catch and shoot 3-point shots this summer with the gym, with the time off.
And this speaks to, I think, one of the more promising aspects, possibly for Strawther and P-Watt and guys like that, because by all accounts, Nikola Jokic is just the hardest working mofo in the NBA. He gets to the gym first, he leaves last, he hits weights after they lose a game, he hits weights after they win a game, and then he kind of handcuffed Christian Brown to him, I think, on his second season or something. It's dude, you're working out with me from now. And but all these guys at the top of the roster have really solid work ethics. And I think it's been communicated down, filtering down through the ranks that oh, if you don't emulate that too, and you don't bust your ass too, you're not going to rise up in minutes. You got to put in the work to get better. And the guys who play with you are not going to take you seriously if you don't. And, that's going to leave you out of the rotation. So, I think Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther will be, and I think I saw something about Julian Strawther was in the gym in June and July, and he's been in Denver some. I think P-Watt's in LA, but he is, working on, rehabbing from his injury. And I think these guys really, the focus that they need to improve and to get to earn rotation minutes, I think is something they're aware of and has been communicated to them, not only verbally, but by example of the best player in the world. So it's if you don't live up to that expectation, you're out. That's what happened with Bones Highland. Kind of, he
Sure.
wanted to be, I mean, he was so exciting as a rookie. It was so fun. I loved that guy at that time, but he just wasn't taking his crap seriously enough for them to tolerate that anymore. And they, that was seen as kind of a bad trade for the Nuggets, I think, in terms of the value they got back. But they went on to win the championship. So it kind of cleaned up the atmosphere in a sense. And, I think there's probably going to be a very minimal tolerance policy for any bullshit from any bench guys, because the starting five is so well established. You're just not cracking through even to sixth or seventh guy unless you're really delivering. So, I think it's a really good work-oriented culture and kind of family-oriented culture, which credit to Michael Malone. He was a huge part of establishing that too, and even though things became problematic, he should never get discredited for helping to build what this team, the ethos that this team, embraces now. Even though things fell apart a little bit last season, he should always get credit for that, because that was essential to their winning the championship, their first in franchise history.
Absolutely. And
but if they want to again, they're going to need to retain that.
Yeah,
and I think
Popovich has talked about that culture aspect with Tim Duncan. When your superstar falls in line and is willing to listen to the coach and get yelled at by the coach and work really hard for the team, the rest of the team just has to fall in line, because if the superstar's doing it, why are you any better than the superstar? You gotta kind of get in line with the whole team. And it makes sense, maybe a little addition by subtraction when you're talking about talents that might not fit that work ethic, and you just want to get them out of the locker room because they don't seem to be buying into what everyone's about here. So that makes a lot of sense. And you would think Jokic
in retrospect, I think that trade ends up looking not quite as bad, seeing what's happened to Bones since then, which I wish him well. He seemed like a really sweet, good kid, but I think his talent has not been optimized, and that isn't only situational. That is partly, of his own creation to an extent. Nobody's entitled. Nobody's entitled on this team. So
For sure. And to that point, he is, he just took a deal to go play overseas. He's not in the NBA this season. And
did he really? I didn't even catch that. Wow.
Yeah, I was just double checking what was up. But yeah, he where is it? He's in talks. Maybe it's just a headline, but talks with the Red Star Belgrade. I'm not sure if that's official or not. But anyway, yeah, that's what Bones
that's a little ironic if he goes to Serbia.
That too. That is funny. And talking about full circle, we got David Adelman, the new head coach. He got his start in Minnesota with his dad, Rick, I believe, as a player development coach and then an assistant coach for years. One year in Orlando and then the rest of the time in Denver. So, of course, the Christmas Day game is Minnesota versus Denver. Is this officially an ongoing rivalry to Denver Nuggets fans, or is it a budding rivalry? I mean, to me, it goes back to the unofficial play-in game before the play-in tournament even started, when they played the last game of the regular season to become the 8th seed, I think, and the other one doesn't make it, and it's literally win or go home. And that was one of the big first games for me of like, this matchup has a little juice to it. There's a little bad blood here for some reason. And then we get all these playoff series. I think there was a quote somewhere that either Jokic or someone on Denver's side had said that it was Minnesota that was the toughest matchup in a playoff series they had during that championship run. So like clearly they get the best out of each other.
After that championship run, Minnesota's been kicking their ass all over the place. Like I think they've lost like 7 of their last 8 games against Minnesota or something like that. Like I'm probably wrong about the numbers, but like they have really struggled, and Anthony Edwards has just been crucifying them. But going back to the game,
the playoff series,
the kind of quasi play-in game that you mentioned, where the winner of that game was going to advance and the loser did not, which was the Nuggets. I think the kind of core of that, if we can call it a rivalry, really kind of originated with Gobert versus Jokic.
Right.
Because when Jokic was coming up, Gobert was already more established, kind of. So, I think, is Jokic good enough to play, effectively and efficiently against the best defender in the world? Like, this guy won multiple DPOYs, right? So, and Jokic has pretty much owned him. But then, like, Denver can't defend Anthony Edwards at all, so, like, now we have a kind of weird dynamic. But, no, I think it's kind of hard in today's NBA to have a true rivalry anymore because teams are just rising and falling so quickly. Like, division rivals, Oklahoma City and Minnesota, are kind of the 2 obvious choices for Denver. And then the Lakers, just because, like, all Nuggets fans hate the Lakers. All good Nuggets fans hate the Lakers. Sorry, Nuggets fans from Los Angeles who still are apologists, but you're wrong. But no. But Lakers fans don't give a crap about the Nuggets except that they beat them quite often. But, I don't think if you ask Lakers fans, like, who is your rival, they're going to say Denver. It's not like Lakers Celtics or any of these classic, I don't think the Nuggets have like a pure intrinsic rival that is obvious, but among candidates, definitely Minnesota's right there at the top, and Oklahoma City is too, and probably the Lakers as well, because Denver just loves, as Michael Malone said, Michael Malone didn't say this, actually. He was attributed to it because he was on the same podium when it was said by, I believe, Vic Lombardi, the reporter for Altitude, but he said, like, they became the Lakers daddy. And, that kind of went viral a little bit and stung the Lakers fans a little bit. But
I do remember that one.
But for some reason that got kind of attributed to Malone. But, like, Nuggets fans love beating the Lakers, but I think Lakers fans probably just don't kind of, like, they only care about Los Angeles. They don't, anything east of there is like a wasteland. And I went to college in Los Angeles, so I'm speaking from experience. Like, I have a lot of friends who are from LA, and they're good people, but people from LA are very LA centric for sure. And I think they don't care about Denver so much.
I could see it. I mean, it feels like the Madman meme. Like, I feel bad for you. I don't think about you at all. From the other guy that responds to him. And the Magic kind of have a similar
by the way,
setup.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like, do the Magic have a
Yeah,
rival?
I think it's kind of similar in that, like, the Miami Heat by default are the rivals. It's a little forced, in my opinion. Like, we don't have enough epic back and forths since, like, I don't know, Shaq and Alonzo Mourning in like the 90s or early, or yeah, like the 90s. Like, to me, one team was always great and the other team wasn't. Like, we got the D Wade Shaq Heat a little later, then it was the Dwight Magic, then it was the Heatles, and then the Magic were just off for a while, and the Heat kind of made some finals since then, and Magic are back up, Heat are kind of trending down. Like, we don't seem to get them both great at the same time, so it feels a little forced in my opinion, but by default, they are the rivals. I would say kind of similar situation, like the Pistons and the Celtics come to mind from like the 2000s era of Orlando Magic basketball, like the T-Mac versus the Pistons, and then the Dwight Howard versus the Pistons and Dwight Howard versus the Celtics. Those kind of matchups are what I think were the most intense for Magic fans. So I'd say those are rivals, but it's probably the same type of thing where, with the Celtics at least, like, oh, where your rivals, we don't even think of you. The Lakers Celtics is the real rivalry, but there could be bad blood amongst many teams, and that to me like just makes everything a little more fun when both sides kind of don't actually get along and they get the most out of each other by wanting to beat each other. Maybe it means a little more for the fans. Like, that's just fun time. So I am glad that matchup of Minnesota Denver has become a thing of this era, where it's good enough to make Christmas Day over any teams from the East. Like, they could have gone Magic Celtics or something like that, and we only got one East game on the whole day. So that goes to show how bad the East injuries are really depleting the top of the conference. But also, like, this is a good matchup. Like, I think Minnesota Denver bring the best out of each other. We get exciting games. Like, a lot of these games we've seen in their matchups. And to your point, like, I was definitely someone that was like, Gobert might be the best regular season defender, gets all these awards, but like, he's not stopping Jokic. He's never slowing down Jokic. And I was, if anything, proven
and in fairness,
wrong.
Like, that's not really the type of defender he's been.
That
so
too.
it's
Exactly.
kind of like, people knock Jokic's defense a lot, and there are definite holes and weaknesses there, but he is a better defender than he gets credit for in many ways. And I would say, like, it's not fair to evaluate Rudy Gobert only on his defensive Nikola Jokic, because he is a great defender in very many other aspects of the game. So it's like, we can't just pick on this one scar. It's not
Absolutely.
quite fair. But, like, I do think there's no love lost on the court between these two teams. And like, Anthony Edwards, as he is wont to do, has talked some shit, so I think especially probably Jamal Murray's hackles are a little bit raised when he goes in there. I think both teams go in with some fire, and it's a good matchup for sure. I think that's the proper, billing for the Nuggets on a Christmas game for sure. And even though, there's actually, like, Tim Connolly's still running, the Wolves front office. So like,
sure,
the Nuggets love him still, even though he left. Like, he's a beloved figure in the organization who he drafted Nikola Jokic. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he
built a team to counter Nikola Jokic, but
exactly. He built the core team, and that, to my point, like, I was someone, and totally agree. Like, that's not Rudy Gobert's game. He is on the aggregate, he's a rim protector against the average team who can anchor a defense. And, just the idea, like, I always kind of thought overrated might be the wrong word, but I think I would have liked to see more players win a few Defensive Player of the Year awards rather than him get 4 of them and Drew Holiday come out with 0 of them over the last like 10 years or 5 years or whatever it may be. So there's a little bit of that.
And Marcus Smart winning it all.
Yeah, Smart won
pretty
like
rough.
I like especially that year. Like, I thought there were others, even on his own team, that were just as good. But, Smart was the face of that defense. Kind of like, I just wish it was Drew, really, is all I really, because I always thought Drew was like another tier above even Marcus Smart as a defender. And, that's just how it goes.
And I think better glue on offense as well in some ways,
yeah, for sure. A little more consistent, like reliable, smarter decision making, I think is kind of what Drew brings to the table there. And anyway, with it, I
just
was proven
one last note on the whole
really.
thing of rivalries. Like, I think the whole culture has just changed so much now that like it's harder to have rivalries because all these guys are friends.
Yeah, that too.
Like they're all going to the Bahamas together and hanging out at a resort, like, and then they're gonna go like battle in October, like.
Right. Yeah, they're all friends.
You see them after the games, and they're all like laughing and joking around, like these guys in the 70s and 80s who just like beat the hell out of each other, and they've really hated each other. We just hardly see that anymore. I think the whole culture has become more cozy and friendly, and it's just harder to have meaningful rivalries when the vibes are too good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that makes like this one, the rarity is what makes it pretty special when we do get a little bad blood, and it just raises the stakes a little bit. And a random stat I saw on, I don't know how this was tallied exactly, but the Nuggets threw this out there on Jokic's last 5 years. Only player in the history of the game to rank top 2 in points, rebounds, assists, and steals league-wide over a 5-season span. He's second in points, first in rebounds, second in assists, and also first in steals. I don't know why that's like shocking me, but like I didn't necessarily think he was racking up that many steals. Now, it doesn't mean he's like on the point of it, out on the perimeter.
I think he was top 5 last season.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that
he's 6 or 7
first over the last 5 seasons is just really impressive to me. I'm not. It shows the consistency of him being available, like a center averaging all these steals. You would, maybe like sometimes
that's one of. I mentioned his defense being underrated. That's one of the like his hands on defense and his court awareness. He can be very disruptive at times and do some playmaking. Like he's not, Marcus can be out there blocking shots, but
great shout.
He defends in other ways that are effective that end up, like if you look at his, like, I think the EPM defensive numbers are pretty good for him, for example. A lot of that is his rebounding, which, he's one of the best rebounders in the league, but
for sure.
But, if you're a totally shitty defender, you're just not going to end up with that good of a rating, especially as a center where the defense is, the importance of that position, playing good defense, is disproportionately important to other positions on the court, So if you're in the center position and getting that good of a defensive rating, like something's going right, even if it's less tangible than, what we see from like a JJJ or guys like that. But
sure thing. And especially like he's not a turnstile out there like other centers that are offensively focused can be. Like he's not just giving you nothing. He's a very smart player. Like you say, uses the active hands. That's why I brought up the steal stat, was to highlight that might not be blocking a ton of shots, but like that. Shout out Marcus Camby though. I love that. That's my all-time like Nuggets team, is the Carmelo 09 or 07, like in that era of him coming up. Just I'm a huge Melo guy, one of my favorite players ever. So the powder blues with Nene, Kmart, Marcus Camby, Birdman, J.R. Smith, like that, Chauncey Billups. The Chauncey version, I think, was like they just get a bad rap, that the team and the player, in my opinion.
They were right there, man. If it wasn't for Anthony Carter's bad inbound, like if they had
the Lakers,
like
that
one or two plays in that Lakers series,
Kobe
and
Malone,
they probably would have gone on to win the championship.
That was the Magic year too, and I'm the only guy in the world that wants to see Magic Nuggets as the finals, as Nike's running this like LeBron. That was the LeBron Kobe puppets and all that. The big showdown that Nike ran. Like the Magic hated those puppets, and we're so excited to like beat Cleveland and make the finals. But I would have loved to see Melo get there too. So we would have got Melo or Dwight winning their first title, Nuggets and Magic winning their first title. Like it just.
Well, I'll
two
tell
of
you
my
what,
favorite
I'm
teams,
right
so
there with you.
gotta give
Like,
them a shout.
I would love to see a Magic Nuggets finals. And I think just a few days ago, actually, I tweeted or blue skied or whatever we're calling it these days, that I asked people, like, what is your adopted team in each conference, like outside of your own bubble of fandom? Like, what is the team that you want to like adopt as your fan team that you want to root for next season? And I chose the Magic and the Blazers for mine. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the Magic this season because I think with the addition, of course, through their big trade, I think it's pretty exciting, that they will actually have a guy who can like score on offense, some 3-point shots.
Man,
so it's going to be, and the defense should still be solid as ever. So I think they're going to be a super fun, like one of the most fun teams to watch this season. And if they make it to the finals, I'll be ecstatic because like them and the Pacers like are both in that category for me. But obviously with Hallie's injury, like that's just not going to be happening this year. But I love to see these, upstart rising teams, and the Magic's been building right, for a long time, but they just haven't kind of found the right missing pieces yet. But I think they may have just gotten one. So hopefully so.
Preaching to the choir here. I mean, you bring in Desmond Bane, one of the best high volume 3-point shooters in the league, for two front court downhill playmakers that desperately need a 3-point sniper. And they did it without really giving up the defensive identity. Like obviously KCP probably even at this state is still a better defender, but like Bane's a plus defender. And I always highlight that like the move this offseason probably was going to be to consolidate some pieces for an offensive minded guard because of who was available. And then all of a sudden they find out Bane's available. They make an offer that they can't refuse. And they bring back a sniper without giving up anything of their actual rotation. Obviously they gave up a ton of picks, but like the defense should be unaffected. You lose Cole Anthony and KCP and bring in Desmond Bane, let alone two more rookies and some other moves around the edge. But like you didn't lose anything. So there's that. And Jalen Suggs only played 20, 30 games last year. He was shooting 40% himself the year before. I mean, Suggs is the man. He's like the energy of the team. He's the core like of the whole like identity of the team. It revolves around his energy and he's just like the absolute picture of it. So like the idea that Suggs is back from injury, he could be a high volume 40% 3-point shooter like he was the year before. You got Bane. You now have Tyus Jones, one of the best catch and shoot 3-point shooters in the league. They just drafted Jace Richardson, another guy that can shoot potentially down the line and fill some of this all around point guard stuff. So, they just brought in three or at least should expect like 3+ shooters in the backcourt that they simply didn't have last season. So that spacing with the front court, I mean, man, I can't wait to see it. I really wanted a guy that could hit pull-up threes too, to kind of draw two on the ball. And Bane's another guy that can do all of these things. So like, I just can't wait to see it play out. Like the expectations are getting pretty high to live up to. I think a lot of Magic fans are basically like, unless we lose a guy to injuries, of course, like this is a top 3 seed that's going to still be a top 4 defense and maybe finally get a little more recognition in all the award season if everyone can play. So definitely can't wait to see it.
Do you think the Franz Paolo combo is tenable long term, or is there too much overlap there positionally?
Yeah,
I mean, because both of them are obviously like rising star, super talented, potential all-star in my estimation, like caliber players. But like, I think there's still questions. Like, it seems like each has peaked when the other has been injured more than when they're together. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that because you know much better than me. But like, do you foresee a future where like that really clicks and works out?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a long-term tenable, like they both want to be here, they want to play together, and that it will work on the court as well. And like to your point, like they both have been played really great on their own. I'd say Paulo is the de facto number one when they're together. And Paulo, like, he was putting up.
Do you think he
points
ultimately has the better career than Franz? If they both stay healthy, like to the end, or
that's
like
a tough one.
Because like Franz's trajectory seems like rising a little more quickly to me, but just in terms of kind of raw upside, Paolo seems like that guy more. So it's kind of hard for me to suss out. And I admittedly don't watch every Magic game, as you probably do. So you must have a much better understanding than me. But
no, I mean, I would definitely. It's a good question. I think either answer is a fine choice. I would go with Paulo for now. I still think his potential is a little bit higher as that like top 5 superstar MVP candidate possible down the line. Like even next year, like if the Magic are a top 3 seed and he's putting up like 27, 7 and 7 or something like a LeBron stat line on a top 3 seed, top defense, like he's going to get all-star, all NBA, maybe MVP nod. But to your point, I think Franz proved he is at least an all-star in the East level player and arguably an all NBA level player if you're leading a top 4 defense on a top 4 seed like he did for like 30 games last year that while Paulo was out, and Franz was putting up 25 and 5 and 5 or something like that. So I think it's a similar conversation to the Celtics core of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Like there are some overlapping skills for sure, and more so positionally, like they just, if neither of them are going to be knockdown 3-point shooters, that's where it might become untenable because I think everything else is pretty much like you can build lineups around these two, but what's kind of saving them is
issue.
especially with no help. Like they were the worst 3-point shooting team in the league because their stars aren't specialists at 3-point.
Oh, they were dead last?
Yeah, not even just the league. They were dead last, like one of the worst relative to NBA history last year when it comes to 3-point shooting, like that bad. Wow. And it's when your stars aren't 3-point specialists and your role players aren't hitting their threes and your best 3-point specialist is hurt all season, it makes sense. So I think they've addressed a lot of it. Like if you're going to have a front court that struggles with shooting, but they're stars at everything else, let's fill the backcourt with shooting. That has been checked. They have just snipers across the board and a legit, like true, like Desmond Bane is one of the best 3-point shooters in the league for the last 5 years by a lot of different metrics. So they got a guy to pair with them to really see how that balance works. And to Paulo's credit, he has had good stretches. It wasn't the whole season. It was like up to the trade deadline of one season, he was like a 40% catch and shoot 3-point guy. And 3-point's really volatile, but I think Paulo is good enough of a shooter that should just kind of develop into a weapon of his as time goes on.
Also,
Franz, I'm a little more worried about
watching him with the ball. Shot. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you there, but
no,
just watching Paulo with the ball, like it just gives me confidence. Like he's just got the it factor that he just seems so natural that he should be able to figure it out along the way. It seems like that should be his natural trajectory, but
and
that doesn't always pan out. But I
he's got a little of the Melo too, the Carmelo stuff. I think Paulo has a little Carmelo to his game, and that
absolutely
that natural kind of score.
Got a little like that jab step sometimes. Huh?
Oh yeah, he loves the jab step. He said it before that Melo's even one of his players that he bases his game off of, and like it's like the early comp was like, what if Melo had LeBron's body almost as more of a even bigger tank or something like that, as more of a downhill guy, because he has a little mix of both of their games in there and others too. Of course, no one is just one guy,
and some better playmaking than Melo too, right? Like.
Yeah, like he's a hub. He's a bona fide scoring hub. Like he's said before, he doesn't want to be the point guard, the point forward, but he is a legitimate scoring hub where the Magic created a lot of catch and shoot threes. Like they were pretty good at creating them. They just didn't hit them last year. So they're hoping that, more proven snipers and 3-point guys around that hub will pan out for the floor balance. Because he's definitely a guy that is kind of a gradual decision maker, or like not a quick decision maker, but I think it's because he's so confident in what he can do that he can take his time to jab step, hit a fadeaway if there's nothing else available. And, finding that flow of the offense, I think will kind of be what next year's all about, is finding, if everyone's healthy, how's the offense look? Are they playing, like, will they have sets that are dedicated just to get Desmond Bane open threes, or are they dedicating like Franz first and Paulo first and everything out from there? I'm interested to see like how the offense looks under Coach Mosley, who adapts like everyone, with all this new personnel, and I'm really excited to see it. I think the like residual effect of adding a Desmond Bane sniper, plus getting Suggs back, plus getting Tyus Jones and Jace Richardson, just like will open up the game for everyone else in a huge way if we get some shooting.
Yeah, I think that's a huge aspect of the Bane trade, is just like, it's not only you get this guy, but this guy makes everybody else's life easier.
Absolutely.
And, like, if he can be a point of gravity that frees up a little more space for Franz and Paolo to operate, like, that just takes pressure off of them in terms of, how much of the offensive load they have to individually carry. I sure hope they stay healthy, man, because, like, everyone's penciling in, like, Cleveland and New York as 1 and 2, right? But, like, I think the Magic have every chance to win the East, at least in the regular season. I'm less confident about the playoffs just because they're a little younger. But, like, man, their defense is no joke, and, like, I think they could really challenge those top two. I mean, we're dismissing Indiana and Boston because of the injuries, but, like, this season, they could really make a push for the top seed in the East, I think, really legitimately, if they stay healthy. So I sure hope they can.
Yeah, and they have the incentive to do it too. Like, it's not some proven contender that can just kind of like make the playoffs and figure it out on the fly and know that they can like count on something once they get there. Like, they need that home court. They need to figure out who they are and what the team looks like and the schemes. And, younger teams that have something to prove are probably going to win more regular season games to that point. Like, whereas, I don't know if Cleveland and the Knicks need to do that again necessarily. Like, they know who they are, and they obviously will be trying to, but, like, I think you get to a point with contending where being healthy for the playoffs is just as important as that seed that you get. So that's not where the Magic are at yet. So I think that is the goal for now. And what a great time to finally get that Magic Nuggets rivalry. I mean, this is about that time. We might actually get it.
I would love it for sure. That would be great.
Sounds good to me, man. So, was there anything else you wanted to plug here before we get off? And appreciate you
just
hopping
one more
on the pod. Yeah.
I feel like there's one more box that has remained unchecked about the Nuggets offseason.
All right.
And that is the potential extensions upcoming for Christian Brown and Peyton Watson. And nobody knows what's going to happen with that yet. I think the assumption is that they should be able to get a deal worked out with Brown. And I think fans are hoping that that'll be in the $20 to $25 million range. Although I think Bobby Marks had suggested that he thought it might end up more at 30. And then I think Peyton Watson is more of a question mark because he's just less proven so far. And if you look at the Zeke Naji contract, for example, or the Dario Saric contract, like, they really did themselves a disservice by prematurely, giving these guys too much money. So there's probably some trepidation about that within the organization. But, they did get under the first apron with the moves they made this offseason. But if you look at 26, 27, they're going to get super expensive because Aaron Gordon's extension will be kicking in. So he makes about, I think, $10 million more than I think the Magic might be looking at some similar conundrums going forward in the next few years, right? Because they've gotten pretty expensive too, right? But
yeah, I think the next 3 years should be safe. But yeah, they got Franz and Paulo on a max. Desmond Bane is kind of I think it's his own max. Like, it's an ascending deal that goes from 35 to 45 million. But then they also have Suggs on a descending team-friendly deal that goes down from 35 to 25 million. So as Bane's contract goes up, Suggs' contract goes down. at the same exact time. So I think the team is pretty set until the big like Paulo extension comes around the corner a few years down the line. But I think for the next like 3 to 4 years, they should be below that. But I might be mistaken as well. But I think that is how it looks financially.
But yeah, that's just something to monitor for the Nuggets, because right now they're getting praise, and rightfully so, for making a pretty shrewd financial deal in trading MPJ for Cam Johnson that saved them money to open up flexibility to add more depth. But can they continue to do similar things if they start, making these big contract extensions that really will, inevitably plunge them into the first and possibly second apron as well. So, which
I didn't even mention off the top with Cam. I don't even know if we hit on it enough that I actually really think like the fit could be even better than MPJ. Like Cam has shown the scalability. Like it's on the table that this lineup is better with Cam than they were with MPJ, and the idea of him being more serviceable and more reliable. Cam has had some injuries himself, so it's not like he can't get hurt or something just because he's not MPJ. Like anyone can get hurt out on the court. But like I think like the role we saw Cam Johnson in Phoenix could look a lot like his role in Denver, where you got Aaron Gordon to Mikal Bridges and Jokic instead of AG or DeAndre Ayton. But you have like a guy that is going to be a catch and 3-point specialist, but he can also be used maybe in bench lineups as a scorer. Like he got a lot more touches last year with the Nets, where you can now rely on him a couple different ways. So I think his scalability is something that the Nuggets will absolutely like love to have, where they can, reduce his role with the starters or increase his role with the bench if they need more of a scoring punch, maybe stagger some of these guys a little bit. But there's some trade-off in skill sets. So
he's just like a super high IQ player too.
That too, yeah.
And
no doubt.
I think, given Michael Porter Jr. many flowers in this podcast, but that happens to be an area like he's a baller, man. But like his court awareness, his overall basketball IQ has not been his strongest point. Whereas, I think this is probably the smartest Nuggets team ever. Look across the whole lineup, like their top, let's set aside Peyton and Julian Strawther because they're still coming up and they're still learning. But, like their 3 bench guys they just acquired, Bruce and Hardaway and Val, plus their starting 5. Like all of these guys are smart dudes who know what they're doing on the court, So I think we're not going to see too much like, what the hell are you doing, guys, on this roster, And that's been one problem for the Nuggets because, like, Jokic hates playing with those guys. And, he, I think, will really love the team that they've built around him now. And I think Cam Johnson will probably be a seamless fit. I think he'll just hit the ground running, and both in terms of what you were talking about, in terms of his skill set, but also just like his awareness of how to fit in, I think will facilitate the process happening more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they're just being okay with that role. And, you'll hear each of them talk on podcasts. Let's just say they sound differently on podcasts, whether you get MPJ or Cam Johnson as a guest. They might be talking about different things. I don't have to dive into MPJ's quotes there, but
everybody knows. So
I
don't think nothing needs to be rehashed, but yeah,
so
I mean,
and to your point, you get a lot of level-headed veterans that aren't trying to prove themselves for their next contract. They're trying to win a championship. They're trying to fall in line with Jokic here to get a ring. And, that's guys that you want that aren't going to be a head case 8 months from now because they're not playing enough. And stuff happens. Maybe someone gets disgruntled. You never know. But, just starting off with like everyone's on the same page. There's no wild cards. There's no guy that's like just going to go ISO ball and ice out Jokic so he can get a pull-up 3 on his own. Like that's just not happening on this team. So I think you weeded out those type of mentalities. You bring in team first guys, and this is the result. So It's one of the deepest Denver Nuggets teams ever. I can't wait to see how it plays out. I hope they all, stay healthy so we can get another great season here. I think Denver, after the moves, like, I think they're right up there once again as a contender. Like, I still think the Thunder are probably on their own tier of like the long-term scheme of things, but like right now,
Agreed.
Jokic is the best player in the world.
They deserve to be on their own tier until someone else proves otherwise to me. Because what they did last season,
Denver's right there.
Bitter as it makes me feel, coming from a Nuggets fan perspective, like you have to give credit where it's due. Like they just had an immaculate, awesome season. Even with Chet being injured for much of it, like it's pretty scary, what they might have the capability of doing going forward. So, I think OKC clearly on a tier of their own. Everyone's saying Denver and Houston 2 and 3, and I'm high on Houston, but I think it's still a little less proven there that, the young talent will come together in the right way. I mean, it's there for sure. It's on the roster, but I think that's probably a pretty fair projection. That is
for sure.
OKC's first tier, those two teams are second, and then there's a cluster, from 4 through 7-ish of the the California teams, excepting one. But you know what I mean. But
sure, yeah, I think that's what I was getting at. Is they have moved back up, created a little space from that cluster. They are not in just the cluster of the good West teams. They're a championship team that already won one with the best player in the world that just added depth. The experience and chemistry is clearly a lot more than the Rockets at this point, and the Rockets don't necessarily have playmaking half court figured out, while they do have a ton of defense and talent, and obviously KD. So, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They're up
if
there,
the Nuggets
but I'm with you. I think the Nuggets have separated just a little.
If they had stood pat and not made any big changes this offseason, then I think they would not be projected as the second seed. They would be below the Lakers, below the Clippers, probably in projections. The over-unders would have them significantly lower, I think. So I think you're making a fair point for sure.
We got to credit the front office. Like they rebuilt this team on the fly. And I think, between the chemistry and experience of the core players that were already there, the system in place, everyone being on the same page, and just building out this depth of different pieces that bring a little bit of different things. So you have some options. There's just a lot to like about this roster heading into next season that, wasn't there a few months ago, as you're pointing out. So I think, those moves solidified them as, top 3, and to me, even above the Rockets at this point in time, but as championship contenders. But, and a lot of things can happen, and that's the beautiful game here. But man,
I think the fact that they won the title a couple years ago kind of puts them by default one notch above the Rockets until again proven otherwise, which it wouldn't surprise me if the Rockets, no pun intended, but ascended this season. No doubt. Amen Thompson is just a beast, and he could perennial all defense, perennial all-star for years to come, and that would be no shocker given what he's shown already. So I'm high on their future for sure. It's just a matter of how quickly it comes together and injury luck and stuff like that, I think. But
absolutely.
But no, they've got a good roadmap going forward for sure.
Yeah, and a good point. Amen Thompson could take a leap, especially as a playmaker. Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, great defenders there as well. They got the talent, that's for sure. And yeah, to your point about the championship, I think Jamal and Jokic being, as you said earlier, being voted as the best two-man game still in the game. I think that's partly due to out of the last 5 years, they got a championship and plenty of playoff success together, despite also having some lows for Jamal, whether it was injury or whatever was going on there. I think there's enough experience and proof that it's just one of the toughest two-man games out there. And also probably a little bit of just how good Jokic is. You could almost pick any of his teammates and he might win that debate against any other duo. Like that's probably a little credit to him as well there too. But when push comes to
that was one thing that came up in that podcast is like,
yeah,
you put Wemby plus anybody, and it's automatically going to be a great duo. You put Luka plus anybody, and it's automatically going to be a great duo. So like, there's definitely that same factor with Jokic for sure.
Yeah, and at the very least, like the Jamal Jokic like combination is greater than the sum of its parts that not every random duo might be. Like they are clearly such a good handoff duo that's hard to stop. And now a trio with Aaron Gordon in the dunker spot, just who are you gonna try to stop first? It's like the most unstoppable play in the league, I think, is that 2-man game. And so I think that gets respect for good reason and until something changes. So there's the Nuggets know who
when
they
it's
are.
When it's working at its best, it's a total Vulcan mind meld, and there's just almost nothing you can do defensively to stop it because they're going to find that crack through the 24 seconds of the shot clock. They're going to keep just pressuring different points and like just finding that one little entry point to get a good look. And Jokic always finds the best look. So.
There it is. That endless decision making, the ultimate scoring creator, Nikola Jokic. Yeah, man, just can't wait to see how it plays out. Like they know who they are. They reloaded. Like this is a whole new version of the Nuggets. Hopefully for the next couple years, not just a 1-year thing here with Cam Johnson in the fold now. Like it looks like to me they extended their championship window considerably for the next few years from all these moves. So can't wait to see it play out. And was there anything else you wanted to plug off the pod today, Joel? I appreciate you taking the time, talk a little Denver.
I haven't written anything recently at all. Like I told you earlier, I think it might have been before we started the recording, but I was in Colorado all the month of July, so
there you go.
I was
you
just
picking
going
up the
to concerts
vibes of the
and
city.
meeting family, and like it's ironic. Every time I go to Colorado, I never do any Nuggets work because I'm having fun on vacation. So it's only when I come back here to Japan that I actually like might do some more work. But no, just like, again, Joel Rush NBA on Blue Sky and Twitter, and come say hi to me there if you want. I'm hanging out a lot, but nothing to promote really.
There it is. Well, gotta check out Joel's work on Forbes. Make sure to read his articles there. And yeah, man, can't wait. Denver's legit. They're one of the few legit contenders, no questions asked. So can't wait to see how it plays out. I appreciate it.
And good luck to your Magic as well. And thank you for having me on. It's been a really fun conversation. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It's been a minute. Excited to we'll do it again sometime, and hopefully we get that Magic Nuggets finals. We get to that. It comes full circle for us, just the way Melo and Dwight would have wanted. We're doing it for them
absolutely, and anytime I'll be happy to come on for sure.
Have a good one.
You too.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.